Thanks again very much for being on this call today. Time and labor is the method that we will be using. It is live now for getting time into the system for our non-benefited employees. This is your employees that are in temporary hourly positions that we're talking about when we talk about time and labor. It's not for our benefited employees. The time and labor module is not going to be used for those folks. So for most cases, other than the Towner Nursery site, the method for getting information for time and labor into the system is going to be either utilizing an online web clock through HRMS or directly entering hours if they would track them via paper, and then they would be entered at the department level, and I'll show you the timesheet that you'll be using to enter those hours. So for the most part, other than the Towner Nursery, those are the two methods that will be used. Towner Nursery also has purchased a time clock, and so those folks will be punching it out on a time clock when we get that up and rolling. I think there were still some hiccups with that, and so that should be rolling sometime, hopefully today it sounds like, but I'm kind of out of the loop on getting the time clock set up in that piece, so I can't answer any questions on the time clock right now. But some business process changes that will go along with time and labor. One of the process changes that we have is that employees, if they would turn in a late time sheet, maybe they forget to turn in their time, or they forgot to do something on the web clock for a couple of days, and then the payroll passes, and so then they bring you their hours on a paper timesheet or something like that. If the payroll has passed and it would be considered late, no longer would you need to send those to our office for entry. Late time and also late leave, when we talk about absence management later, can be entered at the department level, and so by correcting the date to be whatever the correct pay period is when the hours were actually worked. And so that is a nice feature. You no longer have to send those late time slips to our office for entry for your temporary employees if there would be anything late that would be coming through. I did mention in the training, and I'll talk about it a little more when we talk about absence management, but overtime or comp time for your benefited employees who are non-exempt, so benefited employees who are eligible to earn overtime or comp time, that piece will not be in time and labor, or will not be in absence management for banking up or being paid out overtime. That would need to be sent to our office for entry. So you would utilize the new time slip that we have out on our website. Right now it is out there to send in any overtime hours or comp time hours for your benefited employees only. The non-benefited folks, it will calculate the overtime just fine when you do the entry. But again, your benefited employees, if you have any of them that earn overtime or want to bank up comp time, that would need to be sent to our office for entry. So those are the only real business process changes for the time and labor module piece. Are there questions on that before I start the time and labor demo? Okay, I'm hearing none. I brought up the HRMS on the computer. Can everyone see HRMS? Can you see a login screen, the test environment? I hope. I'm going to assume that's a yes. So your temporary employees, when they log into the system, if you decide that you're going to utilize the web clock for them to punch in and out instead of having them do paper, you can do either one or the other. If you are going to decide that the web clock is an option and that you'd like them to be able to use a computer to log in and out for their time, this is the web clock feature that you would be utilizing, or that those I say student a lot because we have a lot of student employees here on campus, but it's temp employees for you guys. For those temp employees to utilize the web clock. It is right on the home page. You'll see it right here. As soon as they log in, their home page will have a web clock. The web clock is only available for temporary positions. It only creates when a person is hired into job data in a temporary or a student hourly position. It does not create the web clock option for a benefited employee to utilize. So what the employee would do after they log in is, if they have more than one position, they would have to select the correct position from the drop down. Most of your folks, I'm thinking, probably only have one position. They're probably only working for you in one temp position, so they wouldn't have a drop down to have to select. They're probably going to have some sort of a temp position that they would be utilizing. So I have now, again, I'm punching in as an employee, and Stephanie is a temp employee, which is what you folks would have logging in. And the punch type that she'll be selecting is, she's either going to be doing an in punch or an out punch. We don't want employees selecting anything other than regular hours from this drop down. We want only regular hours to be utilized, so they would not need to select anything from the drop down. And at this point, we also don't want anything going on with the combo code. We don't have the combo codes fully set up yet to be able to utilize the combo codes via the web clock to have the employee selecting their own combo code. That might be something we'll be utilizing as we are fully implemented and kind of in the system and things, but as of right now, for this initial rollout, we're not prepared to have employees selecting their own combo codes when they punch in and out, and so we're asking that we don't have the employees doing anything with this combo code field as well. If the employee would like to put in a comment when they're punching in or punching out, they can certainly put a comment in. It doesn't really do anything. I don't know why they would, but they certainly could. The comments would be viewable by the employee or by the supervisor, so they want to be sure they wouldn't say anything inappropriate when they were, if they decided to make a comment. But essentially, they would be logging in, selecting the in or out punch, and then clicking the enter punch button. And now it says the following punch has been recorded. It is an in punch. It gives today's day and time, and that is it. And then the employee would then sign out of the system. You can see here, this is a real-time option. There is no opportunity for the employee to select a different day or a different time. They are punching in and out exactly whenever they're hitting that enter punch button. So if the employee would have accidentally forgotten to punch in, maybe they started their shift a couple of hours ago, but they forgot to punch in, they can't change their punch to be a different time than what it is right now when they punch in. So they could certainly punch in right now, so it started recording the time, but they need to also then touch base with whoever the supervisor is, so that the supervisor is aware that there would be some additional time that would need to be added on for that particular employee, so that they got the full amount of time that they were working. So keep that in mind. There cannot be any alterations by the employee to their in or out punch times or their dates. It is real time when they punch in and real time when they punch out. I'm going to go back to the home screen here. So that would be if they would utilize the web clock on the home page. If you would want them to navigate to do the web clock, there is a different page for that if they are in more than one position for NDSU. So maybe they have a job on campus during the academic year, and then they work for you during the summer or over break or something like that, and they would have more than one position. You can tell from the web clock it doesn't give a lot of descriptions. And it doesn't say the department or anything. So if they're confused about what position they should be choosing when they log in, there is another web clock that does give the department name on it. So I'll navigate to that next. That is under main menu, self-service, time reporting, report time, web clock. And you can see here this particular web clock screen for Stephanie does either allow the option for student or temporary, again, just like it did on the front page, but you can see over here these fields now have the department number and the department name. So if the employee was working for Carrington Research Center for the summer, and then during the rest of the year they worked for Plant Path or something like that, then they could see here the different department names, and then they would know which job to be going into. So you could certainly, again, if you have your temporary employees that may have more than one job for NDSU as a whole, more than one temporary job, you could have them navigate to this screen, save it as a favorite, this add to favorites button up at the top here, and then once they would add that to their favorites, the next time they log in, they would be able to go to their favorites, and then the web clock option, it would bring them directly to the screen, so they wouldn't have to navigate to it every single time. So that's the web clock option for going through the navigation so that the department name is visible for the employee. And then the employee, the logging in process, once they get to this screen, is the same. They select the correct position, and then when they go into it, again, they're doing either their in punch or their out punch. The time zone piece is visible on this screen and it is not on the other screen, but we don't want students changing their time zone. We'd like them to keep it, if it's set at Central, to keep it at Central. If it's set at Mountain because they are at a location that their department is in the Mountain time zone, we would like them to leave that at Mountain. Even if they would happen to be traveling and having moved to one or the other of the different time zones, please just have them keep the time zone consistent, whatever it is. The number of hours that they're punched in and out should still be the same. If they would happen to punch in one time zone and out in another, I think that would be pretty rare, but if it would happen, talk with our office and we'll make sure that the employee's getting the correct time. But as long as they aren't crossing time zones within a punch in and punch out period, it shouldn't matter for time zones. Again, the combo code, we don't want the students, or temporary employees, at this time doing anything with the combo codes. They would leave this blank. And we don't want the regular hours or work study hours changed. We just want it to leave it at the regular hours, which is what defaults in. And then again, here's the same comments field. If they'd want to add a comment, they could. I don't know why they would do that, but if they wanted to add a comment, that's where they would do that. I have on purpose selected another in punch. So I punched in before using the web clock on the home page, and now I'm punching in again using this web clock. I'm going to click the enter punch button so you see the zing error message that comes up. So what it will say is the most recent punch at 9:12 a.m. is also an in punch. Select OK to record your punch, or select cancel to go back and change the punch type. So there's legitimate reasons why you might be okay. That you might say, okay, we do want this to record an in punch. Let's say Stephanie punched in yesterday morning, and then she forgot to punch out at the end of the day. And now it's this morning, and she's punching into her job again. So yesterday's in punch was a legitimate in punch, and this morning's in punch right now is a legitimate in punch. She just forgot to do her out punch. She would want to say, okay, meaning yes, record this in punch for me, but then she also needs to take action to remember to talk to someone so that they can manually add her out punch for her. And I'll show you the screen where that would be done. So this is a situation where she would want to say, okay, to record 2 in punches in a row, or if it was 2 out punches in a row, if she punched out, forgot to punch in the next morning, and then went in to punch out. Same type of thing. It may be legitimate to have 2 out punches in a row, but then she also, the temp employee also needs to know then to talk to someone to say, I missed a punch, can you add my in punch or add my out punch, whichever is applicable, so that it doesn't look like this person worked for 24 hours straight, which is what it would look like right now. So that would be an occasion where they would say, okay, to record 2 in punches in a row. Or if they accidentally just picked the wrong one from the drop down, Stephanie meant to select an out punch, then she would cancel. And canceling brings you back to the screen, and then she would just select out from the drop down. So you can see there might be a legitimate reason both ways, where if you might want to do both in punches or both out punches in a row, or you might want to cancel because you just accidentally were in a rush and selected the wrong one from the drop down. So I am going to record this as an out punch for Stephanie. And I'm going to click the enter punch button. And now it says the save was successful. The following punch has been recorded, and now you can see it is an out punch. Again, it's at this exact day and time, and it's at 9:19 in the morning. That would be an occasion where the employee then, they've logged into the system and now they've punched out, and then they would just be able to sign out of the system. The only other thing that your temp hourly employees are going to be able to do in the system regarding their time is view their in and out punch times that they have put in, or view the time that they've given to the department and that the department has entered for them. They can't make any changes to their punches or alter their time or anything, but they can view their time sheets for their punches. And so I want to show you that piece as well. That is under the main menu, self-service, time reporting, report time, timesheet. And again, what I would do if you're going to have employees that are going to find this useful and utilize this a lot, is I would have them navigate to it one time and add it to their favorites, again, so that the next time they log in, they can just go to their favorites and go directly to the timesheet without having to do the full navigation. So I want to bring up the timesheet for Stephanie for that temp position that I've been punching in and out for her. And it's just taken just a moment to pull up, okay? And it pulls up the information on Stephanie. It pulls up whatever the current pay period we're currently in. So we're right now, because we're into April, it's the April 1st to the 15th pay period that automatically shows up for her. If Stephanie would like to look at a previous pay period, she could do that by doing the previous period link. If we'd been live in TLAB for a long time and she wanted to look back at hours that she had punched in and out for, or that had been entered for her for previous periods. Right now, of course, because we aren't live with TLAB for previous periods, she wouldn't have anything in there, but in the future. So you can see right here, this is the punch that I just did for Stephanie. Here was her in punch, and here was her out punch, and here it's totaled the number of hours. It's 0.11 that she's owed for pay. It does need approval. It hasn't been approved by a supervisor yet or anything. The supervisors don't need to log in on a daily basis, or they don't need to worry about doing this, right as the employees are doing it. They can certainly log in once a pay period to make the approval. So don't feel like that supervisors are going to need to be right on that approving it. And in fact, we recommend only doing the approvals once a pay period. I'm going to talk about the supervisor side in just a moment. So I'm not skipping over that or anything, but I wanted to point out here that it does say it needs approval, but the supervisor is not obligated to log in right that minute to do the approval or anything. For Stephanie, maybe we were later on in the period here, and Stephanie had missed some punches, and so you'd gone in as a supervisor and you added some punches for her, or maybe she worked on Saturday the 1st and she didn't punch in or out that day, so then she would have given you a recording of her hours. She would have just said, she might have given you an in or out punch, but you don't have to manually add an in or out punch for her. You could put a quantity in here for her as the supervisor. She'd be able to see that quantity as well. So this is Stephanie looking at anything for her for this pay period that she has either done herself, punching in and out, or that if the supervisor would have added anything, any manual hours for herself. This is what Stephanie can see. I'm going to scroll back over here. You can see here there's no options. These buttons are all grayed out. Stephanie can't make any changes. She can't change her time. She can't change her hours. She can't add a quantity in for herself. So the only opportunities the employees have to do any changes to their time is actually by physically punching in or physically punching out on the web clock, or by letting you know of time that was missed so that you can add the time for her that was missed. So there's not a lot of opportunity for the employees to make other changes or do anything else within this timesheet or anything. For the employee side, for using the web clock, that is pretty much the entire demonstration for that group. Before I move on to the supervisor side, is there any questions on what the employees can do or what they can see?
Yeah, question. This is Ryan from North Dakota Forest Service. When you were talking about time zones, you said that it was infrequent that we would be changing that. We do that 2 times a week at a minimum.
Okay.
Where we start our work is in Bismarck, and then we travel to the western part of the state. And it would be no biggie normally to just stay in Central Time. But the problem is if we do respond to fires in that time, we fill out another piece of paper that is our billing sheet that we essentially bill that time back to whoever owns that fire, whether it's the federal government or a fire department, whoever that is. And in the past, our pay sheets must meet, one of their auditing, our pay sheets, what NDSU has, what we turn in there must meet our billing paperwork. So at some point, we're going to have to transition to Mountain Time, or whatever time zone we are. And then there's times where we'll be in 3 different time zones through our travels, because we travel all over the nation also to do this. So what suggestions would you have to mitigate that issue or to try to hurdle that?
Are these temp employees that you'd have doing this, or benefited?
Yes. Nope, temp.
Temp employees, okay. And do you anticipate them using the web clock, or would you be using paper? Or would it be a combination of both?
That's where we're at, trying to figure out on what it's probably going to end up being paper because of some of these issues. But I was just wondering if you had a solution to the time zone question.
I don't right now. I can think about that and talk with the university system and see what they would suggest and get back to you offline. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Great.
And then the second part of my question is, as the supervisor, and I know we're not into that yet, but we often find ourselves without internet access. So if I have my employees on this, using this, and I myself as a supervisor am offline, if I'm somewhere where I have no access to internet, cell phone, anything like that, and they don't get approved, will they not get their paycheck?
Yes, if the supervisors don't log in to approve by whatever the deadline is for the pay period, they would not get paid. So sometime before the end of between the end of the pay period, and there's going to be about a 4 business day window before it actually runs and moves to payroll, and we run payroll for that pay period. Sometime within those 4 days, that supervisor would have to be able to have internet access to log in.
Okay, so if we don't, because there'll be times where I will not have internet access,
Sure.
Then we probably shouldn't use this. We should probably stay with paper, correct?
Well, and the other thing, keep in mind, most of the time we have our temporary positions, our pool positions, and we have the supervisor in the HR system set up as being the administrative support person in the department, not necessarily their direct supervisor that they're out with in the field.
Okay. Yep.
So it might still work out okay and I can't speak for all of your positions at the Forest Service, but we can certainly look at that. But a lot of times what we have set up as the supervisor in the HR system is the administrative support person, because that person does have, is in the computer more and is in the HR system more often. But we can certainly look at that too.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the employee piece?
This is Myrna at Carrington.
Yes.
I think I know the answer to this since you had trouble logging in, but temp employees will need dual authentication each time they punch the web clock. Is that correct?
We were told they would not. And so when that started this morning, we'd already gotten a couple of calls before we'd started this session that is happening. And so the university system is aware, because they're the ones that have they're the ones implementing this duo thing, and they are the ones that have told us that students doing in and out of the web clock would not have to authenticate. So I'm hopeful they're going to work with the Duo software and remove that restriction that's currently on there for that, because they told us they wouldn't have to, because that would add additional time to the obviously to the employee if they have to authenticate every time they log in and every time they log out. So that's, I'm hopeful that that's just for right this minute, as this is the first day that this is active, that they're going to still tweaking that out. But we'll obviously the ITS department is the one that is kind of spearheading sending out the emails and the communications on this, and so hopefully they will send something when the university system takes a look at that.
This is Linda in Carrington. My question, I have two questions. The first one is, I'm guessing that the comment field would be kind of useful if someone is in a situation where they realize that they've forgotten to punch out or in. That's a spot where they could put, it's not the official spot, but they could put some sort of reminder in there that they forgot to do this. So I could see some use of that. Is it easier, can the supervisors edit punches, or do they have to add a complete new in and out? If someone forgot to punch in at 8 o'clock in the morning, is it better to tell them, just scrap it entirely because the supervisor's going to have to put in the 8 o'clock, or tell them to go ahead and put the 10 o'clock in and someone will change that back to an 8 o'clock punch?
I'll show you that I'll talk about that when we do the supervisor side next year.
Okie doke. And one more question. Can anyone make their adjustments from a mobile? It kind of looks like they can. And this morning when I signed in, I was wondering how it was going to handle Duo, since it would send the Duo to my cell phone. Apparently it just knows, because it didn't double authenticate me in any way.
I really can't answer a lot of the Duo questions, because that's not something ITS and the university system are really working on the Duo project, so
Okay.
I can't answer when it is going to authenticate and when it is not, but I can tell you if you are going to utilize HRMS via a phone, it will allow that to happen. If employees are going to punch in and out via their phone, if they do in fact have to authenticate, or if it's fine to not authenticate, whatever that works out with, anything with internet access will allow you to access the HR system. So tablets, phones, whatever, employees can punch in and out via any of those methods. Okay, I'm going to move on to the supervisor side now for approving time and entering additional time. Okay, so right now I'm logged in as a supervisor. And again, I'm in the test environment right now. I'm not live in the production environment. So when a supervisor has time that the employee has utilized the web clock for, and that time needs to get approved to move on to HR payroll, that's the first part that I'm going to show you. The second part that I'm going to show you is if you're not going to utilize the web clock at all. So the employees will never punch in and out on the web clock and you're only going to use paper. That'll be the second part that I'll show you. They're going to look very similar, but there is a difference on them. So when you're having employees utilize the web clock and they are punching in and out via the web clock, when there is time that needs to be approved in order to have it move forward to payroll, there will be a link on the home page under the Time Management Alerts pagelet called Reported Time Approval Required. It'll hyperlink. If there would be nothing there, there would be no hyperlink and there would be nothing to go into. So that's how supervisors will know that they've had employees punching in and out via the web clock and that they have time that needs to be approved. And I have to authenticate. Okay. Okay. So after you've authenticated, I don't know if the supervisors are going to have to authenticate every time or not. Again, like I said, the Duo is pretty new, and I don't know which screens they're going to settle on having to do that on. But after you've authenticated and you get to this screen, then it brings up an approved reported time page. So this is reported time, meaning the employee has reported some time via the web clock to you. And it brings up this screen, and it has a whole bunch of different search parameters that you can use to search out the employees that have time that needs to be approved. It will automatically default in to pulling up, it'll say pull up any time for any position, anyone that reports to my position number, because I'm logged in as me. So when you're logged in as you, it will be anyone that reports to your position number. So this is why I say most of the time our pool positions for our temp students, or temp employees, or our student hourly employees, all report to the administrative support person. So normally that's in most cases going to be the person that's going to be doing these approvals, not necessarily the direct supervisor that they may actually be working the time with. What I like to do is I prefer to pull things up by my department number, so I always X out the position number field, but you can do whatever search parameters you are comfortable with when you're taking the actions here. And then you have to pick a view by when you're pulling up the employees that you want to approve the time for, and you can pick whatever parameters you would like. What the university system suggests is picking the all time before from the drop down and then selecting a date. So all time before, if we were right now, if we were confirming the May 16th through the 31st payroll, you'd say I want to approve all time before May 31st. That would catch any time from May 16th through the 31st and any time before that if they had happened to have any missing punches or anything that you hadn't gotten approved before last payroll ran. I'm going to keep this as all time before today's date because I want us to look at today's punches that we did. So I'm going to keep it there and select Get Employees, and then it brings up anyone that has all time before today's date. And here is Stephanie's temporary position that she'd been punching in and out for. When you go into the timesheet, let's see here. When you go into the timesheet, then it will pull up. So since I did all time before, and I have time here from March, that hasn't been approved yet. So once I would approve that, and then it would move to the next pay period and the next pay period until I got to the current pay period that I needed to approve for. So that's how you're making sure that you're catching. When you do the all time before, it's going to pull up and it's going to say you've got some time from before this current payroll that you need to make sure that you're looking at. Okay? I'm just going to skip over that and I'm going to go to today's so we can look at what we're doing right now. It does take a few moments to refresh, so that's what I'm waiting for right now. Sometimes it takes a long time to refresh, I guess, this morning. Oh, come on. Sorry, this is a test environment, and the test environments sometimes are a little slow because they don't kind of clean them up as often as they keep the production environment moving along. So sometimes things are a little slow when they're moving in here. Okay. So here is, I'm in the April 1st to the 15th pay period, and I can see here that these are the hours that Stephanie had punched in and out for. So if she'd missed a punch, Carrington, I think, had asked a question about what to do. So if she had missed an in punch or missed an out punch, and you'd had that person punch in right now instead of, maybe Stephanie came in at 8 o'clock this morning. So you had her punch in at 9 when she actually can't come, but now you need to give her that other hour and 12 minutes of time from 8 o'clock until 9:12 that she worked. What I would do then, instead of fiddling around with the in and out punches for her, I would add a quantity for her. So again, today's April 4th, so I would add a new row to April 4th. Go. I would add a new row to April 4th, so now there's 2 April 4th rows. And then I would give her a quantity of the the 1 hour or whatever it is that she had missed before. So that way her in and out punches that she legitimately did were fine, and then I'm adding whatever she had missed. This quantity field also works if, let's say, she was being hired and her start date was April 1, but the hire didn't get through manager self-service until today. And so she couldn't punch in and out April 1st, 2nd, or 3rd for those days because the hire wasn't completed at that time. Again, I would just add a quantity for her then. So her in and out punches, she was able to start as of whenever the hire went through, but you just need to add a quantity for those couple of days that she'd missed. You can certainly, if you would choose and you want to continue with in and out punch times, you certainly can do that. I'm not saying don't use the in and out punch times for yourselves as well when you're doing these. I just think it's additional fields that take more time for entry. So that's why I like the quantity field if the punches were missed entirely or if you have some back stuff that has to get on there. But it's certainly up to you. The only time I say you should definitely do the in and out punches is if Stephanie had missed a punch. If she had an in punch and she forgot to do her out punch, I would add her out punch time instead of doing with the quantity field, so that you have legitimately, she had her in punch and here's her out punch that she'd missed doing. That's the only time I would say that you should try to use the in and out punch fields for those employees, as if there's a missing punch situation. If you need to override the combo code, all the earnings will go to whatever the default combo code is for this employee. If you need to override and have them go to a different combo code other than that, that's the combo code fields here. You can either use the lookup or you can type them in if you know the combo code string. You can certainly do that without doing the lookup. You do have to do that combo code if you're overriding it for several days within the pay period. You have to put the combo code within all of those days that you want that applicable for. It won't copy all the way down. You can copy and paste it yourself. The system won't automatically copy and carry it forward. So you have to keep that in mind. And again, if maybe within the same day you had more than one combo code that the employee needed to apply their hours to, that again, you can add as many days here as you want. If you need the person worked 4 hours on April 4th for combo code A and 4 hours on April 4th for combo code B, and whatever 2 hours because they worked a really long day that day for combo code C, you just add another row you'd have 3 4 rows instead over here. Once you're done making the changes to Stephanie's pay sheet, again, this is the sheet that you will go into when you're having the employees utilize the web clock. So if you're adding missing punches or adding missing quantities for that employee within the pay period, throughout the pay period, you're going in and out many times. You can certainly do that. Every time you do a change for Stephanie, but we're still within the pay period, you'd want to click the submit button. The submit button is going to calculate things for you. It's going to total things for you in this columns here. and everything, but it is not going to send it to payroll yet, because we don't want to send this to payroll right now. We're still within the April 1st to the 15th pay period, and Stephanie's going to have other hours that she's either going to punch in and out for, or that I'm going to manually add for her if she does a missing punch. So you submit as many times as you would like, as many times as you need to throughout the pay period. And then when we're approaching that deadline day, which we'll be sending out notices for, when we're at that deadline day after the pay period is done and you've taken a look and all of Stephanie's missing punches are in, all of any missing quantities are in, all of the combo codes are good. After that time and you're ready to send it to payroll to calculate the check, you click the approve button. So that's the difference between when you'd want to do the approve and when you'd want to submit. You want to submit for changes throughout the pay periods. And then once the pay period is complete and you're ready for that person to get paid these hours, you click the approve button. So that's the difference there. There's other options here, like denying and pushing back and saving for later and clear. The only other one that might be useful sometimes is if you'd need to deny a punch because maybe Stephanie picked the wrong job that she punched in and out on. She had more than one job on the drop down or more than one job on that web clock page, and she accidentally picked the wrong one, so she punched in for your job and she should have punched in on a different one. That would be a situation where you would click the deny, you'd select that one and you'd deny that particular row. I wouldn't deny the whole sheet or something. So that might be a situation where you would click the deny button. The push back button, we don't want employees to use, supervisors to use the push back button. If you push back any of the hours to the employee can't do anything with them, because remember, the employees' screens were all grayed out. They can't make any changes to their time. So if you have a discrepancy with their time that you're looking at for them, you need to talk with the employee, and then you, the supervisor, need to make those changes yourself. You can't push them back to the employee to make any changes. So don't use the pushback button. I would suggest don't use the clear button, and the save for later button is not going to do anything for you either. So the buttons you need to be concerned with doing things are the approve, the deny, and the submit buttons. Any questions on this part? Again, this is about the web clock.
Say, this is Carrington again. What does happen if you push the clear button?
If you push the clear button, if you've selected these all and you push the clear button, you're clearing out the page.
Whoa, that would suck.
And if employees, someone had talked about making comments, if the employee had made a comment on any of their punches, this little button would have little squiggly lines in it. And when you would go in, you would see the comments that the employee had made to you. So there's the comments button that we talked about. If the employee missed a punch and they came in at 8 o'clock and they were going to make a comment and say something to you, that's where you would see those comments. There'd be squiggly lines, and when you go into it, you would see that there would be comments. We're not going to see anything because there's nothing in here, but I clicked it anyway. So here you would see, if she'd made a comment, you'd see that comment here. Or if I want to make a comment back to her, I can type something here and add a comment, and then she would see comments when she looks at her timesheet.
Tricia, this is Sarah from Langdon.
Yes.
After this screen is done, are you going to go back through this screen with if we use a paper?
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I'm going to
punching
do next.
This is good. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions before I go to that step? Okay. I'm going to go back to the home screen. So this next section is what you're going to use if you do not utilize the web clock at all. You don't think the web clock is going to work for you because you don't have access, or you have too many funds that you need to be splitting it out by, or for whatever reason it is that you're not going to utilize the web clock, and you're going to have that employee continue to use a paper timesheet and hand the hours in, and then they get entered. This is the screen that you'll go to for that. So you won't go to this time approval required screen because there won't be time to approve because the employee didn't use a web clock. Okay? You'll have to navigate to their timesheet screen. So under main menu, manager self-service, time management, report time, timesheet. That will be the page that you'll go to. I would suggest navigating to this and saving it so that you don't have to navigate it to it every single time. Okay? And again, the screen looks very similar to the other one, but this is called the report time timesheet. So this is, you are reporting time on behalf of the employee here on this screen. Again, you can set up whatever search parameters you would like. I'm going to pull it up by department number, and I'm just going to leave it as the view by and the criteria as today's dates. And when you select Get Employees, and even if you keep it as the reports to position number, now instead of only getting people that show up that use the web clock, you're going to get everybody. So that's how you'll know if you accidentally utilize the other screen and you're not seeing the employees show up, it's because they didn't have web clock hours. Okay, so now
a moderator is already present.
So now you
will
can
now
see,
be placed into the conference.
Hello, I think somebody may have joined us. I'm in the middle of the training on the timesheet process right now. So now if I am not going to have Stephanie utilize the timesheet at all, or the web clock at all, and I'm only going to do the timesheet, this is the screen that I'm going to do it. And you can see here, when I selected I want my search parameters to be everybody in my department number, that's everybody in my department number now, not just people that signed in and out using the web clock. I'm going to go into Stephanie again. And it's going to take just a moment to pull up here. And let's say this would be, again, a situation, there shouldn't be any web clock hours here because, again, we're pretending like Stephanie doesn't use the web clock at all, okay? But because I used her in my earlier example, I don't have a ton of different employees that I can select that are temporary employees. So there would be nothing else here. This screen would be just like it is right now. I would suggest then, if they're doing paper and they're handing it to you, that you're going into this screen to enter the hours for the employee after the pay period is ended, so that you're only doing this one time. I don't know why you would go in several times in the pay period to enter when they're handing you a paper timesheet. They're probably handing you the paper timesheet after the pay period is done, and then you'll have a few days after the pay period is done to do the entries just like you do now. And so if you'd like to enter in and out punches for the employee, you can certainly do that. But again, I would suggest doing the quantity field. Put the quantity of hours in for the particular day. Override your combo code if you need to override your combo code. Add rows for if you need multiple combo codes on the same day. So this screen itself looks very similar to the other one, but this is the one that you utilize if they're not using the web clock at all. Again, if there's late time, they hand you a late time sheet. That's where you can, as a supervisor, go into a previous pay period, and you can enter time for a previous pay period by just selecting the previous pay period link. It will bring you back to that correct pay period when they worked the hours. We want to be very careful about, don't just add them onto the current pay period because it's easier. That might bring them into an overtime situation, and it's incorrect reporting for Department of Labor standards. So you do want to make sure if they do turn in something late that you are actually moving it to the correct pay period and putting it on the correct days, so that for compliance purposes we're being exactly correct there with that. And
Avaya, please enter your...
Once you are completed,
a moderator is already present.
Once you're completed with all of your entries for that pay period, then you would submit and approve those hours just like you do on the other screen. And then it will, approving means you're pushing those hours forward to payroll, and they're going to calculate and pay on the next applicable paycheck. If there were late hours that you've approved, they're also going to calculate and pay on whatever the next applicable paycheck is.
Yeah.
Are there other questions regarding the timesheet process versus the web clock process?
This is Myrna in Carrington.
Yes.
If they're using the web clock, or even if we're
Avaya,
entering the punches for them,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that with the.
yeah. If they're using the web clock, or if we're entering punches for them, does it automatically take out an hour for lunch?
No, they would, if they're utilizing the web clock, they would have to punch out for lunch and punch back in after lunch. Otherwise, they're going to get paid that whole time. But if you're using a paper timesheet, obviously you're just going to enter the time that they actually work. You're not going to enter their lunch period, their unpaid lunch period.
Tricia, this is Sarah from Langdon again. For the benefited employees, we do overtime on the time slip and we send it to Fargo.
Yes.
For the temporary employees, we do overtime in this screen.
You enter it all in
Avaya.
the quantity column or in the in and out punch column. The system will calculate at what point they hit 40 hours and change whatever is applicable to overtime. So you don't have to you don't have to specifically designate any of it towards overtime.
But a lot of our summer workers are paid from grants, and you can't pay overtime out of grants.
Okay.
So at the end of the week, I would say, like, say for instance, 1 hour of overtime. Well, I have to make sure it doesn't get paid from a grant. I use a different funding string. So in the new program, would you want us to be calculating overtime daily or like on the Friday?
No,
Do we
on
take
the-
a portion of those?
Yep, at whatever point they hit the 40 hours. So I wouldn't do it daily. I would do it at whatever point they hit 40 hours. So if you're getting to the Friday here and you're realizing they're in that they're going to hit overtime and they're going to have 2 hours of it for that day, then maybe they worked 6 hours because they've done the overtime earlier in the week. 6 hours are going to be a quantity you'll use at whatever other funding, and then the 2 hours that
Avaya.
can't go to that
Please
grant,
enter your-
you would enter the quantity, and then you'd put whatever quantity or whatever combo code you need that overtime time to go to.
Right.
And then sometimes we'll have 10 different grants that we're paying someone from. I just email Fargo to have all those set up in the combo codes.
Leanne's here.
Or,
I'm looking at Leanne.
I would email Leanne like we normally do to set up all those codes.
Yes, that's correct.
Leanne said yes.
Okay.
She's here.
For
I
our
just-
full-time employees, we can email like Leanne and Eric and have different funding codes and split it out by percentages. Can we do that with summer workers? Where this
Avaya.
is
Please enter your
we're gonna go in here every day or week and break it down on our own.
I'm looking at Leanne.
They would have to do it.
Yep, you'd have to do it on your own.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on the timesheet process?
Is there some kind of report? I mean, now we check to make sure everything's correct. Is there going to be any report we run to check things, or
Do you run the pay register now?
yes?
Yep, that's what you continue to run. But it's only going to show hours on there after you've approved them. So you have to approve them, and we have to run a calc, and then they'll show up on the pay register just like they do now. After you'd enter it on the higher ed time entry screen, and you would have submitted on the higher ed time entry screen, and we run a calc, and then they show up. So it's the same process It just, whenever you've hit the approve button, we have to have run a calc in order for the.
Okay, and so then if there's something we find wrong on the report, how does it get fixed?
You'd touch base with our office and we'd help you make that change.